Today I'm starting a long process starter. This is a sourdough starter, and I'm gonna use two different flours for the first few days. So I've got a 1/4 cup of unbleached all-purpose flour, followed by a 1/4 cup of whole wheat flour. And to that, we're gonna mix in a 1/4 cup of warm water. And then we're gonna put a lid on it and just park it in a corner of the kitchen and let it sit for 24 hours. On day 2, our starter looks pretty much the same. It's a little more liquidy with a little bit of bubbles on top. So we're gonna add another 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, another 1/4 cup of whole wheat flour, another 1/4 cup of water, and it's best to use distilled water. You don't want chlorinated water. If you don't have that, you can use tap water. You wanna give it a good stir. It's gonna be pretty thick and pasty. And then you're going to put the lid on again and park it in your kitchen and wait 24 hours. On day 3, more bubbles. It's starting to have a bit of a smell, and I won't say it's yeasty yet, but it is a bit funky. So from going on out, the rest of the days, it's all-purpose flour and a 1/4 cup of water. So the ratio is a 1/2 cup of flour to a 1/4 cup of water, and just give all that a good mix. And because I was afraid I was overgrowing the jar, I'm gonna leave this in that green bowl overnight, just lightly covered with some plastic wrap. And again, I'm gonna park it in the kitchen. You can see there's some bubbles. Day 4, a little more bubble action, but still looks pretty much the same. Very liquidy. So again, now I'm going to pour half of it in a clean jar. I'm feeding my starter. It's not quite yeasty smelling yet, but it definitely has a bit of an edgy smell to it. So we're adding in new flour, another 1/2 cup of flour, and a 1/4 cup of water. Give it all a good stir. You may think that nothing's happening at this point, and it may not be, but I realized it was probably because our kitchen was kind of cold at the time. So there it is. And again, day 5, taking a look at it. It's got some bubbles. We're going to discard half of it again, and we're going to feed this with another 1/2 cup of flour and a 1/4 cup of water. Give it all a good mix. Now that we're into day 5, we want to mark this with a rubber band so we can tell when the mixture has doubled, because once it's doubled, it's almost ready. You can see it hasn't doubled in day 6, and so again, we are going to take half of that starter, put it in a new jar, and we're gonna add another 1/2 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of water, and give it all a stir. And then we're going to put the rubber band on again and hope for the best. Now by day 7, I'm kind of giving up hope at this point. It doesn't look like it is ready. It hasn't doubled in size. It smells, but it doesn't smell like yeast yet. So we're gonna try something new this time. We're going to pour it into another clean jar, half of the starter, and then we're gonna add fresh flour, 1/2 cup, and we're gonna put fresh water, 1/4 cup, give it all a stir. And then, because we're doing this at night, I'm gonna leave it in the oven with the oven light on, because that'll give a little bit of heat, but not too much. And again, we're marking it with the rubber band so we can tell. And look at what happens on day 8. It is more than doubled, lots of foam. And now we are going to test it. And the way to test if your starter is ready is by taking a spoonful and putting it in the measuring cup with water. It doesn't have to be a measuring cup, but just on top of water. And if it floats, it's ready. And if you can see, it's floating. Oh, it's magical. It was so magical. So we can use half of this starter now, and we can save the rest, and we're gonna put it in the fridge. So we're gonna put half of that mixture into a clean jar. And I've put a little note on the top. with the date so I know when the last time I fed this. And we're gonna feed this with half a cup of flour and a quarter cup of water. We're gonna stir it and then put it in the fridge. And then we don't have to feed it for about a week, which is cool. But the stuff that's left over in the jar that we're not using right away, we are going to use that, I should say, to make some sourdough bread, which is on a whole nother video. But this is the starter now that's gonna sit in the fridge, and this could be in my fridge now for years. So you wanna give it a good mix, put the lid on it, keep track, and feed it once a week. For this recipe and more, visit myclasscancook.com.